Welcome to Nazarene Israel. My name is Norman Willis, and I'll be your host for this week's Parasha Pinchas for 2022. And just to recap, in last week's Parasha, Balak, we saw how the king of Moab, Balak, tried to hire the independent prophet Balaam the son of Beor to curse our forefathers in Israel. And in fact, he brought divination fees both from his own people in Moab and also from the Midianites, because the Midianites were also in dread of our forefathers in Israel. Then we saw how King Balak and the for-profit prophet and independent minister, Balaam the son of Beor, tried to curse our forefathers in Israel 7 times. 7 times they prepared a full altar and a full sacrifice to Yahweh, hoping to please Yahweh so he would give a curse upon Israel. But each time it came out as a blessing instead. And this is not a small theme. And we're going to see also in next week's Parasha, Matot Maseh, that when Balaam was unable to curse our forefathers in Israel, still he tried to stay in Balak's favor. Probably Moab and Midian were big clients of his, big customers. He wanted that customer retention program. So still he tried to earn his divination fee by counseling the Moabites and the Midianites to seduce our forefathers with the worship of their false god Baal or Baal of Peor. And frankly, brothers, our forefathers let themselves fall into this sexual temptation. And this is a problem for us, because doesn't Satan have plans to seduce us sexually as well and to get us to fall into sexual sin? And since we are our forefathers' children, then aren't we also vulnerable to the same kinds of sexual temptations? So let's take a moment in this parasha just to see what happened and what went wrong in the wilderness. Let's take a look at how Satan tempts us sexually so we can resist and even overcome his temptations, both as individuals and as a restored nation. Please join us for this parasha. Okay, let's briefly recap the most important points to prepare ourselves so we can dive in deeper. Again, last week in Parasha Balak, King Balak paid the for-profit prophet Balaam to curse our forefathers in Israel. In fact, they wanted him to curse Israel so much, they brought tribute and honor payments both from Moab and also from Midian. But Yahweh wouldn't let the independent minister curse his people because Yahweh had already blessed his people Israel. But what we're talking about here really is a big vulnerability for anyone still living in the body of flesh. And that's us. Because we're going to see again in next week's parasha, Matot Maseh, we see the independent minister, Balaam, counseling the king of Moab and counseling the Midianites to seduce our forefathers with the Midianite women. And it happened even while our ancestors were still in Acacia Grove. Already they began to commit harlotry with the women of Moab. Now, this word harlotry has a dual connotation. It has 2 meanings. It refers to both physical harlotry and also refers to spiritual harlotry by turning to the worship of other gods, because idolatry is spiritual adultery. It's a violation against Yahweh. And let's notice how easily this whole thing happened. The Midianite women just invited our forefathers to take part in the sacrifices of their false gods. How lovely. What good neighbors. Yeah, it's almost like having a one world government and a one world religion where everyone on your block has a different faith and it's all supposed to be okay. Well, our forefathers fell into it. Our ancestors ate and bowed down to the false gods of Midian. And so our ancestors were joined to Baal Peor, or the Lord of the Gap. But we could make a whole teaching series on this, but when we look up this word Baal or Bel, we see it's Strong's Hebrew Concordance, Old Testament or Hebrew 1168. And what we see is that Baal or Bel is a Phoenician deity whose name means owner or Lord. And it's true that Yahweh does own his servants, but if we read this carefully and stop and consider what it is that we're reading, doesn't it also mean that the pagan Phoenicians were calling upon the name of the Lord? Let's check it out. Peor is Strong's Hebrew Concordance Old Testament, or Hebrew 6465, and it refers to a gap. So Baal Peor literally means the Lord of the gap. But we also know from our other studies that Peor probably refers to the gap in the sense of a crotch, especially a woman's crotch. So our forefathers were worshiping the fertility god or the fertility lord of a woman's crotch. Not so good. So now we look up the root word for Peor. We see it's Strong's Hebrew Concordance Old Testament, or Hebrew 6473. It's Pa'ar, a primitive root meaning to yawn in the sense of opening wide, making a gaping gap. And it's this kind of fertility god worship that our ancestors were practicing at Acacia Grove. It sounds unimaginable to us today, but fertility god worship and fertility rites were very common in ancient Middle Eastern pagan mysticism. They're still common today outside of what we call the Christian world. We saw similar things in Corinth, where you had male and female cult prostitution. We talk about that in the Nazarene Israel study. We also saw similar things with Diana of the Ephesians. She's also a female pagan fertility goddess. She had pagan fertility rites and rituals. But in context, Midian just invited our forefathers to come to the worship ceremonies for the fertility god of the gaping crotch. And we can imagine what kinds of rites and rituals and things went on to go along with that. Probably, as they had in the ancient world, you had probably both male and female ritual cult prostitution going on. And our forefathers went for it. So, brothers, what does that say about our predispositions and our vulnerabilities today, brothers? Well, if you want to know more about why the name Lord means Baal and why it's wrong to call upon the name of the Lord instead of calling upon the name of Yahweh, then I invite you please to check out our study on the set apart names. You can find it in Nazarene Scripture Studies, Volume 1. And if we think that there's no such thing as the influence of fertility cult prostitution and fertility cult worship that's been brought inside of the church, then just take a look at the worship of the Lord on Easter sunrise. We see people going to hunt for the colored rabbit eggs because rabbits are also symbolic of fertility. They breed very quickly. And let's not forget, the eggs on Easter sunrise services, they're dyed with human blood back in those days. And people think there's nothing wrong with Sunday Christian worship or Easter sunrise service on Easter, except that we forget that Easter, that's the same thing as the goddess Ashtoreth or Ishtar, Asherah, Easter. It's all the same thing. Ishtar, Easter, was also a pagan fertility goddess. But most of Ephraim says, no, we don't need to watch out that pagan elements creep into our worship based on sexual fertility rites. We don't have a problem with that. There's no problem like that in Ephraim today, Norman. Okay, well, coming back to the history in Bamidbar, Numbers, Yahweh commanded Moshe to take all the leaders of the people who'd led the people into sin and hang them out in the sun before Yahweh. It might sound brutal, but stupid and rebellious action on our part can call for strong corrective measures on Elohim's part to save the majority of the flock. So, Moshe said to the judges of Israel, every one of you kill his men who were joined to the Lord of the gap. Oh, but then what happened? Even in our time of punishment, when Yahweh was in the midst of bringing a plague upon our people to correct us, to bring us back in line, our ancestors, their attitudes were so bad that one of our ancestors came and presented a Midianite wife to his brethren in the sight of Moshe and in the sight of all the congregation of Israel, even as they were weeping at the door of the tabernacle of meeting because of the plague. I mean, can we imagine the cluelessness of our forefathers? Our people are in the midst of receiving punishment, a plague for our lack of loyal love toward Yahweh. And one of our forefathers has the gall to bring a Midianite woman into the camp. Hi, shalom, meet my wife. She's a Midianite, and she worships the fertility god of the Midian, the Lord of the Gap. And I'm taking her into my tent right now. Anyone got a problem with that? Anyone at all? Yeah, I got a problem with that. Let me tell you what the problem with that is. And maybe this is something that we can't really redress under democracy. But when verse 2 says, the Midianite women invited the people to the sacrifices of the Lord of the gaping crotch. And the people ate and bowed down to the Lord of the gaping crotch. And Israel was joined to the Lord of the gaping crotch. What exactly do we think was happening here? You know, we have Israelite husbands and Midianite wives being joined together as one flesh. Any concerns about unequal yoking going on here? Verse 7. Now, when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aharon, the high priest, saw what was happening, he rose from among the congregation, took a javelin in his hand. He went after the man of Israel into his tent, and he thrust the both of them through, both the man of Israel and the Midianite woman through her body. And so the plague was stopped from among the children of Israel. Tehillim, or Psalms chapter 106 and verse 29, tells us that our ancestors provoked Yahweh to anger with their deeds, which extended from their lack of loyal love. They didn't love him in their hearts. And so the plague broke out among them. But then Phinehas stood up and intervened or interceded, and the plague was stopped. And that was accounted to him for tzedakah, or righteousness, unto all generations forevermore. But now let's look at this word intervene. It's Strong's Hebrew Concordance, Hebrew or Old Testament 64:19. And it's palal, a primitive root. It means to judge, either officially or mentally, but by extension, to take action, meaning to intercede or to pray. So we can talk about the intervention of Phinehas. We can also talk about the intercession of Phinehas. And we could also talk about the prayer of Phinehas. All three of these things are contained in the same Hebrew root word, palal. And what this shows us is there's much more to prayer and intercession than just words. Right action for Yahweh, helping to build the kingdom, can also count as intercessory prayer. But brothers, we're coming into the end times. Are there any lessons from the parasha that we can use to help ourselves and our families today in the face of all these temptations from Satan? Because isn't Satan constantly trying to get us to fall? Isn't Satan constantly trying to tempt us with something of the world to get us to take our attention off of Yeshua and to put it on the world or to put it on some kind of a problem? And let's be real, in the flesh, what gets a guy's attention faster than fertility? Money, power, fertility. These are all temptations to get us to take our eyes off of Yeshua and to put them on something of the world. It's designed to get us to stop abiding constantly in the vine. Well, Bereshit, or Genesis chapter 4 and verse 7, tells us that sin is always crouching or lurking by the door. We looked that word up in the Hebrew. It's like a hungry animal ready to leap. It's crouching by the door. And its desire is for us. It wants to eat us. It wants to get us. But we must rule over it. As long as we're here, to me, that's the whole point of circumcision. Yes, there's hygiene benefits to circumcision. There's less cervical cancer. There's better gynecological health for the wives of husbands who are circumcised. The husbands themselves have better hygiene. But the real deal to me behind circumcision is it's a sign, it's a vow that we're going to submit our flesh and our reproduction to Elohim. So, if it doesn't mean that, and if we're not going to submit our reproductive systems to Elohim, then what's the point of making a symbolic cut? So we can make a boast in our flesh? Circumcision is worthless without loving obedience to Elohim. In fact, maybe it's even worse than worthless because it makes it think that maybe we've done all we need to do. We're circumcised and we're resting on Sabbath and feasts, and maybe we're going over to someone's tent and we're sharing a meal or something like that. And we believe that because we've done all those checklist kinds of things, that we've done the whole of the Torah, that we've helped to fulfill the Great Commission. Isn't that what Satan's trying to get us to believe? I ask brothers because we have a lot of problem with this kind of thing in Ephraim. And in general, Satan's been very busy trying to get Ephraim to sin and to fall from his favor. And one of the things that Satan likes to do is he likes to generate a lot of confusion, typically through his servant Babylon or mystery Babylon. Term Babylon in Hebrew being Bavel, it refers to confusion. Now, in Scripture, things are very clear. The roles for men and women are clear. But in society today, and especially coming into these end times, we have a lot of people very confused about their gender roles. Because why? Because they're raised in a Babylonian democracy. Babylon means confusion. So Scripture tells us that men and women have different biology, they have different plumbing, they have different functions. So because of this, they have different but complementary roles. They're supposed to work together to help build Elohim's kingdom. But that's been a problem because men, sadly, have not always done the best job of servant leading. They haven't given an example of how to manifest Yeshua's spirit in love. And so, because men haven't always done the best, sometimes they've done things very, very wrong. And this has given place to one of Satan's favorite tactics in trying to destroy the family. Now, Scripture tells us that both men and women are equal in the sense that they are both fully worthy of his love. However, Yahweh has us play different roles. He made the men as initiators and as warriors. He's made the women as responders and as nurturers. And the husband is to lead his family through dedicated love, and the wife is supposed to support him in that so that together they can raise their children in the way they should go, so that when they are older, they will not depart from it. But he made men and women different, and men and women think differently. It's been remarked everywhere in secular society, and now they're having to change everything to fit the end time roles and the end time definitions. But the way Yahweh made things, men and women are different and they think differently. It's kind of like brothers thinking blue and sisters thinking pink. And that's okay. It's no problem. Vive la différence, oui? But Satan tries to tell us that if we admit there's any physical differences in the biology between men and women, then of course, as a natural result, there's going to be a difference in the value and the worth and the lovability between men and women. And that's just simply not true. And where they went with this in the Bolshevist revolution in Russia is that they tried to say that in any kind of a believing marriage, the husband is going to be the oppressor, and his role is to mistreat and enslave his wife. And so for this, Marxists call marriage an evil institution, and they try to outlaw it. And the Marxist goal is to break up any kind of a believing marriage in Yeshua. And the purpose is allegedly to free the wives from their oppression. This is a total red horse pattern. And you see a lot of Ahab and Jezebel couples, they fall right into this. About 1 out of 7 is what we find in our study of the book of Revelation. There's 7 assemblies, and one of them tolerates that woman Jezebel. But really, what they do in the red horse, it's all just one gigantic focus on the negative. Anything we go in life, we can either focus on the positive or we can focus on the negative. I mean, if we want, we could even focus on the negativity of our coming marriage to Yahweh. We could view that as a kind of slavery, right? I mean, we are his willing slaves, we're his willing servants, and he does make all the decisions. And there's plenty to complain about if we want. Just ask our ancestors leaving Egypt, right? So we could focus on the negative if we want, but it's only going to lead to more negative. Or we can make the conscious choice as the leaders of our households to diligently seek that which is good and to focus 100% on the positive 100% of the time, remembering what Romans 8 and verse 28 says, that all things work together for good for those who are called and chosen according to his purposes. This is the kind of thing Scripture counsels us to do. Proverbs tells us to diligently seek that which is good. Shaliach Shaul, the Apostle Paul, tells us to not to focus on the negative, but rather to pay attention to that which is true, that which is noble, that which is lovely, that which is pure, and that which is of good report. And not surprisingly, that's not what either the Red Horse Communists or their Black Horse Sabbatean Frankist handlers do. Because it is the Black Horse Sabbatean Frankist Illuminati who is guiding the Red Horse Masonic Lodge in these end times, and they are the ones preparing this whole disaster that's getting ready to go down. However, if we read the Marxist dogma that came out of communist Russia during the early days of the Bolshevist Revolution, we can see that they attacked marriage savagely, especially believing marriage. They attacked it as being a societal evil. We expect them to try the same thing coming up in these end times with the imposition of a global new world order. Because the new world order will be communism. And in communism, if you destroy the family, then the people are no longer reliant on the family. The people are now no longer reliant upon Elohim's basic building block for all of society, for all of civilization. In other words, civilization falls because the people are no longer reliant on Elohim. So now the state replaces the family as the new basic building block of society in the New World Order. And this is what we expect to see coming up. So we live in a world where we're told by our Babylonian governments to trust total strangers to raise our children for us, even though we know that the Red Horse Bolshevist state government hired them with the express philosophy of destroying our families and replacing them with the state-sponsored system. Now, I'm not going to attack religious schooling. I believe there is a very good role for religious schooling, and our Orthodox brethren have had private religious schooling in yeshivot for their own children for millennia now. And our Orthodox brethren are some of the smartest people on the planet. There's nothing wrong with learning from experts. So we don't speak against yeshivot or against schooling in general. But back in when I lived in the old city in Jerusalem, I lived right across the alleyway from one of these Orthodox children's religious schools, 10 Galed Street. I used to love listening to their songs. They would sing the songs each morning. I used to love that. And we don't know exactly how it went for the Apostle Paul or Shaliach Shaul, but Shaliach Shaul was raised at the feet of Gamaliel or Gamliel. So he was probably also raised in some kind of a yeshiva or some kind of private religious schooling, similar to the ones in the old city today, because our Orthodox brethren are such highly traditional people. What I'm saying is this: our Orthodox brethren don't let the state hire strangers to raise their children according to Bolshevist doctrine. Not even the Sabbatean Frankist Illuminati brethren allow the Bolshevist state to raise their children in that kind of public schooling. So when you realize that there's a dual level system going on here and that they're attempting to give us the same thing they gave to Russia during the Bolshevist Revolution with the express purpose and intention of breaking up our families and luring us to break down Yahweh's standards with the promise of the pleasures of the flesh, with the promise of sin. And these dangers become very real to us right now. Now, because the family is the basic building block of Elohim's civilization, and because the family has already come under tremendous amount of fire, and because we believe that as the end times progress and the new world order is upon us, that's probably going to be getting a lot worse. We're going to do what we can to bolster and strengthen the basic building block of Yeshua's civilization and kingdom. So we're going to be spending a lot more time focusing on family matters in future parashiot. The plan is that I will go back to doing the in-depth doctrinal studies, and our brother Ulysses Rodriguez, or Yuli, he'll be taking over the parashiot in just a few weeks. And he will be talking about several things having to do with families, how husbands can lead their families in the way of Torah, how families can pull together to serve the congregation, and how the congregation can help build Yeshua's true global kingdom. Again, I'll be going back to the in-depth doctrinal studies, Father willing. But no matter whether your family is already perfectly ordered and you want to know why everything is going so well, or if you have problems in your family, and you'd like to know how are things supposed to be ordered, how are things supposed to run, then I would encourage you to read our book study on covenant relationships, and then also to stay tuned for Yuli's teachings. But we've seen again and again in this Parashah series that Yahweh says he is a man of war, and he calls us as his armies, and he organizes us accordingly. In Yahweh's armies, the husbands are basically the officer corps, and the wives serve basically as the senior non commissioned officers or the senior sergeants. Together, they have the mission of raising up their family in the way it should go, so that when their children are older, they shall not depart from it. And all of this is to help build strong families. And these are the basic building blocks of Yeshua's kingdom, especially when they come together in right relationship in a congregation, and then also taking their part in the global kingdom. But all that is deals with taking down rebellion. Mankind, we have been in rebellion since the Garden of Eden. And we've come up with all kinds of schemes and things to make it look like we're submitting to Elohim, but we're not really. That's what Mystery Babylon is all about. And just because we're resting on Sabbath and feasts doesn't mean that we're doing our part to build up Yeshua's kingdom. It happens at the individual level, at the family level, at the congregational level, because that's our job, is to help him build his true global kingdom that will rule and reign during the millennium. And the place to start, brothers, is with us. Then build up our households. Then build up our communities. All of this, it requires submission to his spirit. And submitting to his spirit, that's evidence that he has overcome the rebellion in us. So now we can sing the praises of our conqueror, Yeshua, because he has the victory over rebellion even in us. But what does that victory look like at the family level, at the congregational level? How do we walk that victory out as a people? At least he's going to talk about all these matters in the parashah starting in just a few weeks. But one thing Yeshua's kingdom doesn't look like is our ancestors' sin at Baal Peor. And if I could have a word with the young men, this is a matter really for every man to take to heart, but especially when you're in that time when you're going to be making one of the most important decisions in your life. Don't make any date, don't go out anywhere with any sister who wouldn't make a pleasing bride before Yahweh. Just don't do it. It's just not worth it. As a man, we need to discipline ourselves. We need to discipline our spirits. There's duty involved here. We have roles that pertain to the brotherhood. And when Ulysses gets here, he's going to talk a lot about how we can organize correctly as inside of our families and inside the congregation, and also how we can perhaps break out of wrong familial patterns or what's called generational sins, so that we, like our forefathers, we may find ourselves stuck with problem situations. We need to know how to break out of the wrong patterns and help build the right patterns for ourselves, our families, and our communities. You know, a little bit of leaven leavens the whole lump, and there's nothing quite like the leaven of fertility. So, because of this, when we find sin in ourselves, no matter whether it's sexual sin or temptation to sin, no matter what it is, we need to meet it with the same spirit and the same attitude as Phinehas met it with. We need to basically go to war with ourselves, meaning go to war with our flesh. So Yeshua said it wasn't enough just not to do the sin. You know, not only should we not do the sin, we shouldn't even be entertaining thoughts about the sin. Now, to have a wrong thought, that's not sinful as long as we bat it away right away. But any length of time entertaining that sin, that's where sin enters in. Now, in Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 27, Yeshua tells us, "You have heard that it was said to those of old, 'You shall not commit adultery.'" It's the seventh commandment. How perfect a commandment is that? The seventh. But Yeshua said that whoever even looks at a woman with lust for her has already sinned. And that pertains to everyone. Ephraimite, Jewish, Israelite, makes no difference. Even the Moabites. If our right eye causes us to sin, there's times to take drastic action. There's times to go to war with yourself, with your flesh. Now, Yeshua says if it's the only way to keep from sinning, there's lots of other ways, but if it's the only way that you're able to keep from sinning, the seventh commandment is so important. It's as if we should even pluck our right eye out and just throw it away. Father forbid, but it's better for us that one of our members perish than that our whole body be cast into hell. And in like manner, so with our right hand or any other part of our body that causes us to sin. If we truly can't find any other way to stop sinning, we should cut it off and throw it away. Father forbid, because there's other ways to stop from sinning, but it's more profitable for us that one of our members should perish than that our whole body be cast into hell. And brothers, for the brothers among us who are trying to be disciples, we have a real duty to establish Yeshua's standards in his community worldwide. We need to be the ones to establish that framework for ourselves and our families. And as the man, as the initiator, that begins with you. That begins with all of us as men. We all have duties to perform. We need to do those duties. Elohim is counting on it. So we need to be the protective fence around the garden of our families, and collectively, we need to be the protective fence around our physical communities. We can keep the letter of the Torah, but if we're not helping Yeshua to bring about his kingdom on earth, if we're not willing to be the men to order our families, and if we're not willing to be the men to order our communities and then make an evangelical effort for him in our communities, what are we doing? So if we're not doing Yeshua's will, we can be resting on Sabbath and feasts and going to Jerusalem every year, whatever we want. But if we're not helping Yeshua get what he wants, which is what his Father sent him to get, we're still sinning. We're still double-minded. We're still halting between two opinions. We want to serve Yahweh, but we don't want to do the things it takes to serve him. Well, if Yahweh is Elohim, then don't we need to serve him the way he wants to be served, with all of our hearts, with all of our soul, and with all of our strength? Or we suppose he's just filling up parchment. It's each man's duty to take the responsibility upon himself to make sure that his family is being raised in the way of Yahweh. That's very clear in the Torah. Again, there's a certain sense of duty and honor and loyalty to Yahweh that come along with the package deal. We're called as a nation. Talk about that in Parasha Nitzavim. We're not called as individuals reading our Bibles at home. We're not called as individuals lurking out there on the internet, seeing how much we can get for nothing. A lot of people out there drinking from all the fountains. It's our job to do what Elohim wants us to do. It's a package deal. We sign up. We want the blessings. We need to pay the cost. We need to do the work. That's what we're here for, is to be his servants. So if we're not going to do all that Elohim says to do, with all the integrity we've got, with all the duty and honor that we've got, what do we think we're doing? Does anyone think Yahweh is fooled? Well, in chapter 27, we see one of the people that entered into the promised land. Moshe laid his hands on Joshua because his spirit was in him and animated him and moved him. It wasn't just that he had the spirit and didn't respond according to it. He had the spirit and he dedicated the rest of his life to the service of his Elohim. Joshua was the one to lead the children of Israel into the promised land because he had Elohim's spirit. He manifested Elohim's spirit. He lived according to Elohim's spirit. Now, even so, we just need to point out that these men weren't perfect. They were far from perfect. Moshe couldn't even talk hardly. He stuttered, he stammered. Joshua wasn't perfect. But as the old saying goes, Elohim doesn't call those who are already qualified. You don't see that in Scripture. Rather, he qualifies those whom he calls through the trials he brings us. But to make it through those trials with a positive, can-do, joyful attitude, we need to take the attitude Shema or bust. We need to diligently listen for the voice of Elohim and obey it, just like he says. The very first commandment he gave us after bringing us out of Egypt. And if we will do that, if we will diligently listen for the voice of Elohim and do our best to obey it, he will transform us into the people he wants us to be. That's Yeshua's will for us. He wants us to remain in him, his Father in him, and him in us. And we are now his hands and his feet. We're doing the will of Yeshua Elohim. So, are we going to do that, brothers and sisters? Shabbat Shalom.